After 10 years as a professional triathlete, I've distilled all my hard-earned lessons into this exact blueprint that is going to make you run faster than you ever thought possible, even if you've never run a single mile in your life. So there are 3 levels, and we're starting with the fundamentals. So the first step of the fundamentals is to set goals the correct way. There are many ways to do this, but most athletes turn to something called SMART goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. But the way I work with elite athletes and how I do it are slightly different. Let me show you how. Now, I actually want to run faster, so I'm going to go through this process with you so you can see exactly how it's done step by step. So this is my goal setting template, and don't worry, all the templates in this video are going to be completely free, and I'll leave a link to them in the description and in the top comment. So first of all, we want the goal to be specific, so I'm gonna type in that I want to run a half marathon in 70 minutes. That's pretty specific. Then we want it to be measurable. So how are we going to measure this goal? Now, my measurement is going to be the official race time on race day, and that needs to be under 70 minutes. Now, this is where I do things a bit differently from most people because they set achievable goals. That's part of the SMART system, but I'd like to set ambitious goals. So goals that are so high that it will take everything I got to reach them. And to be honest, I would rather set a goal that I don't reach, but have it set so high that even if I fail and I even come close to it, then I have achieved a ton. So that's what motivates me. Maybe it's something different for you, but I found that if I set ambitious goals, then I'm just going to achieve way more. So let's take a look if this is ambitious or not. Well, being a sub 70-minute runner is actually in the top 1% of runners. That's pretty ambitious in my opinion. Now, next up, we want to set a goal that is realistic, and it basically just means that we want to set a goal that is humanly possible. So if you set a goal that no one has ever done before, actually, I don't mind that. But if you set a goal that says like, well, I want to grow 5 feet over the next 4 weeks, well, that's not humanly possible. So it has to be realistic. And well, people have run sub 70-minute half marathons in the past, so it's definitely realistic. And actually, my personal best is 1:07, but that was when I was a professional triathlete. So with the current constraints, setting a 1:07 is just not feasible or realistic at all. Finally, we want our goal to be time-based. And that basically just means that we set a specific date and time for when we're going to achieve this goal, because if we don't, then it's just gonna remain a dream, and we're going to keep pushing it forward and say, okay, next week, maybe next month, maybe next year. So we need to have that specific timeline. For me, I'm going to complete this goal on May 27th. But having a goal is nothing but a dream if we don't take action, which brings us to fundamental step number 2, and it's the most powerful way I know of to take massive action. When I first started in triathlon, we were a group of young athletes who all wanted to be great. To keep each other accountable, we all met up every single Saturday to do the hardest session of the week. Now, this session was brutal, and every time we finished that last run, we all just completely wasted, fell to the ground. But we kept showing up and we kept pushing each other to the limit. And if you really want to hit your goals, you need to take advantage of this power of accountability partners. You see, without accountability, it's just so easy to let things slide whenever life gets in the way. That's why, to this day, I make it a top priority to do the hardest session of the week with a friend of mine who can push me to the limit. And the funny thing is that momentum drives all my other workouts, because I don't want to be beaten on Mondays. I want to come in there sharp as I can be. For you, it could be something different, but you need to find a way to keep yourself accountable. In fact, if you are really serious about reaching your goals, then let me know in the comments below what your goal is, and I'll help you keep yourself accountable. But that brings us to the next question. How do you plan your training most effectively to reach those goals? Think of building your running fitness like building a house. You start with the foundation and then you add specific layers on top, each with a specific purpose. This is known as periodization. So that begs the question, how do we periodize our training most effectively? So if we look at our calendar here, and let's just say that our goal that we set for ourselves are on May 25th. Then I'm gonna type in race day here. And now I want to work my way backwards. So in the weeks leading into the race, we want what's called a peak phase. So I'm just going to color it out here so that I can see that this is 2 weeks of peak phase. Before that, we want some really hard work that is going to make our race day great, and that is called the build period. And for that, we want somewhere around 8 to 12 weeks. So I'm just going to set 8 weeks here, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to color it out. So now that I got that mapped out, before the build phase, we got something called the base phase. And this is where we build up our endurance and our strength so that we can take the volume that we are going to do in the build phase. So I'm just going to take the remainder here. Usually the base phase can be anywhere from around 8 weeks to 20 or 24 weeks. But I'm just going to take the remainder here and then color that out. So now I got a complete plan of when I'm going to do what in my periodization. So I know that when I'm in the base phase, my goal is to build up my endurance. And when I'm in the build phase, I want to build intensity. And in my peak phase, I want to taper and make sure that I'm ready for race day. Now that we got our phases, we need to take a look at how to plan out our single weeks to make sure we get the most out of each and every training, which brings us to the next step. So this right here is my weekly training template. And as you can see, I've called it base training. That's because this is for base training. And then I will build another one for our build phase and then another one for the peak phase. And it's laid out so that I've got all the weekdays and then I also got the weekend schedule. And that's because sometimes I find it easier to split it up because weekends might be a bit harder to keep consistent based on what we're doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is to figure out which days I'm going to work out. And I'm going to work out on Mondays and on Wednesdays. And then I'm going to work out on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I got 2 days off during the week. There are a bunch of different ways to do this, but we're not going to get into that right now. So now that I've got that, I need to make sure how many weeks I actually have in this phase. So I got 10 weeks, and that means that I need 10 of these boxes because I'm going to write out all of them. So now we got 8, and that's 10. So now I got 10 workouts. So now I want to build up the individual workouts based on the period that I'm in. And I also want some type of progressive overload, meaning that each and every week it gets harder. So if we start on the first week, I might do 40 minutes of easy jog, and then it might get to 45 minutes, and then 50 minutes, and then 55 minutes, 60 minutes, and so on. Now you're going to do this for every single day, but you want to make sure that when you look at the last week of that period, that you can actually do that. So a lot of athletes start with a bunch of motivation and then you just start with 8 hours of running and they have nowhere to go from there. So if you can't see a progressive overload over that period, then you need to dial it back and start lower. It's better for you. You will get better and you will risk less injuries. Once you have done this for every training, you have a complete training plan that will make you run fast. But that is just the bare fundamentals of getting in great shape. So let me show you the secrets, the real secrets of elite athletes. So one of the most effective ways to get better and see real results is by using test days. These are days where you check in on your training to see how things are going. Here's how you do it. Set a test day every set number of weeks. I usually do every 4 to 6 weeks because it gives you enough time to actually see an improvement, but it also makes sure that you test frequently enough to adjust your training. Now that you have a day, you need to decide how you test. I like to do a simple 30-minute time trial. I do this because it's pretty easy to recover from, but also it gives me a great idea of my current fitness level. The goal is to run as far as you can in 30 minutes, but you need to kind of pace yourself, so try to keep that pace as steady as possible. This gives you an idea of your endurance and your speed. After each test, ask yourself these questions. Are you running farther in 30 minutes than you did 4 weeks ago? Did you plateau? If your results didn't improve, then look at your training. Did you stick to the plan? How was your sleep and recovery? Did you regress? If you're not progressing or even getting slower, it might be time to take a look at your training plan. Perhaps you need more recovery or different types of workouts, but you need to figure out why. From here, it's time to adjust your training. Based on your results, you can make small, subtle tweaks. If you're improving, well, keep going. It's working. If you're not, consider adjusting your intensity, adding more sleep, more recovery, looking into your diet, looking into all these other things or all these other variables that could be impacting how you're performing. So how do we know which types of training we need to incorporate if we're not improving as fast as we'd like? Ask yourself this. When you do your test, what is stopping you from running faster? This is called your limiter. Is it your lungs that give in first? Or do your legs feel heavy before the end of the run? Whatever your limiter is what you need to focus on to see the biggest improvements. So, how do you do that? Let's say you find that your limiter is the strength in your legs. Then adding strength training or doing hill sprints will help you a lot more than doing more VO2 max work. Plan your training based on your limiters and you will see yourself run so much faster. But this is where the advanced strategies comes in, because those will help you run faster than you ever thought possible. Back when I was a professional triathlete, I would train around 30 hours per week, which is a lot of stress on your body. So to make sure that my body could handle that amount of total stress, we added what's called deload weeks. And deload weeks are the secret to long-term success. They allow your body to absorb all the hard work and come back even stronger. Without them, you're more likely to burn out or plateau. So the aim of the deload week is to make sure that we stay consistent and we don't progress too fast. In a deload week, we usually train around 60% of our normal volume and we remove most of our intensity. A lot of elite athletes, including myself, use a 4-week period where we have 1 week of deload. So we do 3 weeks on, 1 week off. If you can handle a ton of volume, you can spread it out and have a deload week every 7 or 8 or even 12 weeks. But in the beginning, I would recommend to have it more often than you think. The deload week is often also the week where we do our testing. If we get back to our calendar here, then it would mean that every 4 weeks, so let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to add a deload week. Now, I'm not going to add a deload week leading into the peak phase because the peak phase are basically deload weeks. But if you take a look now, it looks a lot more manageable. You only have to work hard for 3 weeks and then you have an easy week and then 3 weeks and then an easy week. So how do you know how often you need deload weeks? Over the past few years, the Norwegians and the Norwegian method has become extremely popular. Mostly because people see Jakob Ingebrigtsen run extremely fast, but also because the Norwegians do things a bit different to the rest of the world. They use data for everything. And to be honest, I've based all of my training on data ever since I became a pro. There are multiple levels to tracking data and you can track everything from mood and sleep and nutrition and heart rate variability and so on. And data will help you know exactly when you are overreaching or when you are underperforming so that you know when to add those deload weeks. For most runners, tracking your heart rate with a perceived effort scale, something like the Borg scale, will be a great starting point. Most smartwatches will also give you a total stress score and heart rate variability and a bunch of other data. Some are useful, some are not. But don't worry, you don't need fancy tech to get results. Listening to your body and making small adjustments based on how you feel will make a huge difference. Now that you've got a full blueprint to run fast, that leaves us with a question. How do we calculate what training zones that will help us get the maximum out of our training? I'll teach you exactly how in this video right here.